Some of these British aircraft became legends, their names echoing through history. Others were forgotten before the war even ended, their stories fading into the archives. From the first defiant shots of 1939 to the final victories of 1945, the Royal Air Force and Fleet Air Arm flew a staggering array of machines into battle. Today we're undertaking a monumental task, to catalogue every major British aircraft type that saw operational service in World War II. This is the definitive roll call of engineering, courage, and sometimes, desperate necessity. We begin at the end of an era with the last of the biplane fighters. Biplane fighters. The Gloster Gladiator was the last of its kind. A sleek, tough biplane fighter, it was already outdated in 1939, yet it served with stubborn distinction. It defended Malta in its darkest hour and fought over the deserts of North Africa, a final gallant shout from the age of open cockpits and fixed landing gear. The Gloster Gauntlet, its predecessor, was thoroughly obsolete. By the outbreak of war, it had been pushed from frontline squadrons, finding value not in combat, but in preparing the next generation. As an advanced trainer, it was a vital workhorse, teaching the fundamentals of aerial gunnery and maneuver to the pilots who would soon fly Hurricanes and Spitfires. The Hawker Fury, a beautiful and agile biplane of the interwar years, saw extremely limited secondary service, primarily in training and communications roles overseas. Its time had unequivocally passed. And we must include the Fairey Swordfish here. Though its legacy belongs to torpedo bombing, this ancient-looking biplane was technically a fighter-bomber on the naval books. Its story, however, is so profound it demands its own moment later in our tale. These biplanes were the last gasp of a bygone age of aviation. They bridged the gap between the past and the terrifying future that was already screaming towards them in the form of the German Blitzkrieg. That future was monoplane. Monoplane fighters. The Hawker Hurricane. Forget the glamour for a moment. This was the true backbone of the Battle of Britain. Rugged, reliable, and easier to build and repair than its more famous sibling, the Hurricane accounted for the majority of the RAF's kills during that critical summer of 1940. It was a sturdy, forgiving platform that could absorb punishment and keep flying. The Supermarine Spitfire. The icon from its Merlin engine variants that fought the Luftwaffe to a standstill, to the late-war, blisteringly powerful Griffin-powered Marks, the Spitfire evolved relentlessly. These final versions with their 2,000-plus horsepower engines could outperform almost anything in the sky, ensuring the legend remained lethal until the very last day of the war. The Boulton-Paul Defiant was a revolutionary but fatally flawed concept. Relying solely on a dorsal turret for armament, it was massacred in daytime combat. Yet, in this failure, a new role was found. As a dedicated night fighter, equipped with early radar, it achieved notable success during the Blitz, proving that even a bad day fighter could find purpose in the dark. The Westland Whirlwind was a pilot's dream and a logistician's nightmare. This twin-engine fighter was incredibly fast and packed a devastating punch of 4 20mm cannons in its nose. But it was hamstrung by persistent engine issues and a limited production run. When it did see service primarily as a ground attack platform, it was fearsomely effective. As the war progressed, the missions changed. The Hawker Typhoon, designed as a high-altitude interceptor, found its brutal calling low to the ground. Armed with rockets and bombs, it became the tank-busting, locomotive-destroying terror of the Western Front, its thunderous engine noise signaling doom for German ground forces. Its successor, the Hawker Tempest, was arguably one of the finest piston-engine fighters of the war. With a new, sleeker wing and immense power, it was blisteringly fast at low and medium altitudes. This speed made it the premier destroyer of the V-1 flying bomb, chasing down and shooting the robotic missiles over the English countryside. And then the future arrived. The Gloster Meteor, Britain's only operational jet aircraft of the war. While it saw limited combat primarily against V-1s, and arrived too late to fundamentally alter the air war in Europe, its significance cannot be overstated. The Meteor was a roaring announcement that the age of the propeller was entering its twilight. For longer range, heavier hitting power, the RAF turned to twin-engine designs. The Bristol Beaufighter, nicknamed Whispering Death, for its quiet engine note at a distance, was a monstrously versatile brute. It excelled as a night fighter, a long-range strike aircraft, and a devastating anti-shipping platform, its mix of cannons, machine guns, and later rockets making it a legend in every theater. The de Havilland Mosquito, the wooden wonder. In its fighter variants, this sleek, all-plywood aircraft used its phenomenal speed as its primary defense. It served as a devastating night fighter, a pinpoint-accurate intruder, and a pathfinder for the heavy bomber streams. Nothing else combined its performance, versatility, and sheer elegance. Specialist night fighter conversions of the Hurricane and the rugged American-made Douglas Boston, known as the Havoc in RAF service, also played crucial, if less celebrated, roles in defending the night skies. The Royal Navy's fight demanded specialized machines. The Blackburn Skua was a dual-role fighter dive bomber, achieving the first British aerial victory of the war. The Blackburn Rock, a navalist Defiant with a turret, was an unmitigated disaster. The Fairey Fulmer, a two-seat fleet fighter, was underpowered but valued for its long range and stability. Its successor, the Fairey Firefly, was far more capable, becoming an essential reconnaissance and strike aircraft in the Pacific War. Navalising land-based designs was a necessity. The Hawker Sea Hurricane, hurled from merchant ship catapults or carrier decks, provided vital convoy protection. The Supermarine Spitfire, a navalist Spitfire, gave unparalleled fighter performance at sea, though its fragile landing gear made carrier operations a heart-stopping ordeal. American Lend-Lease aircraft formed a cornerstone of naval power. The Grumman Martlet Wildcat was a tough, compact defender. Its successor, the Grumman Hellcat, brought dominant performance, while the mighty Vought Corsair with its distinctive gull wings was mastered by British pilots who developed curved landing approaches to tame its vicious deck landing characteristics. Later, homegrown designs like the heavy Blackburn Firebrand arrived, but saw little combat before the war's end. The early war bomber force was a mix of courage and obsolescence. The Fairey battle was hopelessly vulnerable, suffering devastating losses in 1940. The Bristol Blenheim, once a symbol of modern speed, was soon outclassed, though it fought gallantly in countless early raids. The Vickers Wellington, the Wimpy, was different. Its unique geodetic metal lattice frame could absorb incredible damage and still bring its crew home. It was the unwavering backbone of Bomber Command's early night offensive. The Armstrong Whitworth Whitley and the Handley Page Hampton, nicknamed the Flying Suitcase for its cramped crew quarters, were the other two stalwarts of the early bombing campaign, carrying the war to Germany before the four-engine heavies arrived. The Avro Manchester was a troubled transitional aircraft, plagued by unreliable engines. Yet its airframe was the direct ancestor of a legend. When fitted with 4 reliable Merlin engines, it became the immortal Avro Lancaster. The heavy bomber was Britain's strategic weapon. The short Stirling was first, capable of carrying a massive bomb load but hampered by a low operational ceiling. The Handley Page Halifax was a powerful, versatile workhorse, serving with immense distinction as a bomber, glider tug, and special operations aircraft. But the Lancaster was peerless. The ultimate expression of the strategic bomber, it combined a vast bomb bay, rugged durability, and excellent handling. It executed the most famous raids, the Dam Busters, the sinking of the Tirpitz, and bore the brunt of the bombing campaign's latter years. It was and remains a symbol of both immense destructive power and immense crew sacrifice. Here, legend status is held by a biplane. The Fairey Swordfish, the string bag, was archaic, slow, and unforgettable. Its torpedoes crippled the Italian fleet at Taranto and helped sink the Bismarck. The Fairey Albacore, meant to replace it, was only a marginal improvement. The Fairey Barracuda, a monoplane, was a technological leap forward. It achieved fame by delivering the strikes that badly damaged the German battleship Tirpitz in its Norwegian fjord, a final act for the Royal Navy's Spear carrier strike aircraft. These were the long-range guardians. The short Sunderland flying boat, a flying porcupine bristling with guns, hunted U-boats across the Atlantic. The Supermarine Walrus, an ungainly amphibious biplane, performed the humble but vital roles of air-sea rescue and naval spotting, often launched by catapult from cruisers and battleships. American Lend-Lease Consolidated Catalinas provided unparalleled endurance for ocean patrols. The Westland Lysander, with its superb short takeoff and landing capability, found immortality in the shadows. It slipped SOE agents in and out of occupied France under cover of darkness. The Taylorcraft Oster was the Army's eyes, a tiny spotter plane directing artillery fire from the front lines. As the war became global, logistics were everything. The Bristol Bombay and Handley Page Harrow moved troops. The Armstrong Whitworth Albemarle found its calling as a paratroop carrier and glider tug. The Avro York, derived from the Lancaster, became a long-range transport. The Vickers Warwick, a failed bomber design, was redeemed as an outstanding air-sea rescue and maritime patrol platform. This was the unglamorous backbone of the entire air war. The de Havilland Tiger Moth primary trainer taught a generation to fly. The Miles Master was the advanced trainer that bridged the gap to frontline fighters. The Airspeed Oxford trained bomber crews. An aircraft like the Miles Martinet, towing targets for live gunnery practice, performed one of the war's most dangerous but essential jobs. The Silent Invader. The Airspeed Horsa troop glider carried paratroopers into the darkness on D-Day and at Arnhem. The gigantic General Aircraft Hamilcar could deliver a light tank directly onto the battlefield. These fragile wooden vessels were the spearhead of airborne assault. From the last biplanes to the first jet, from the forgotten trainers to the immortal bombers, this was the arsenal of democracy's first champion. Each aircraft on this list represents a chapter in a vast 6-year story of innovation, adaptation, and staggering human endeavor. Some were brilliant, some were flawed, and many were simply what was needed at the time. Together, they formed a kaleidoscope of aerial might that fought from the skies over Kent to the jungles of Burma, from the Arctic convoys to the D-Day beaches. They were not all perfect, but they were all there. This is the legacy of British aviation in World War II. A legacy built in aluminium, wood, fabric, and courage.